Good morning. I'm in a little early. Just gonna wait a couple minutes so people have a chance to get logged in. And this is for VirtualPBX dash admin training. If you're a vConsole customer, we no longer have the live trainings. So for vConsole customers, we do have recorded trainings still on our website. So if you go under support, under vConsole support, you'll notice here we've got these 3 trainings. This one here on the far right, the advanced admin training, that's the complete admin training for the vConsole. And then we have all of the guides down here as well. For our Dash customers, we obviously have this training. We also have this training recorded as well as some other videos up. This new user training, in fact, I believe is the full training. And then these 2 are shorter, specifically about adding users and dealing with the business hours. And as always, we have our written guides down here, and the guides include screenshots so you know what to look for as you're going through the UI. Anywhere on the VirtualPBX website, you can click login at the top here. This gets you to the login page, and then you can select where you're going to go. So first up, we have the Dash login. So that's where you go in to handle or make setting changes. So we're adding users, adding devices, that sort of thing. Down below is the VirtualPBX web phone. So this is, again, specific for Dash customers. You can add a web phone, which basically means you use a web browser on a desktop or a laptop computer to make and receive telephone calls. It means you need an internet connection. It currently is only supported on Firefox and Chrome. We are still working with Edge and Safari to get those working. It will not work on mobile versions of any browser. So Chrome on your phone will not work. And then down below that, we have the vConsole login for vConsole customers. And then we're on the Dash login page, and you can just bookmark this page in the future if you want to. But basically, we need your email address, your web password, and then the account name. Usually it's a company name. This is obviously a test account. And then get you signed in. All right, and this is your dashboard. So this basically shows you a snapshot, if you will, of your current setup here. And let me scan the window just a tad. So users, these are your full-featured users. They can make and receive calls. They can use a variety of devices, whether that's a VoIP device or cell phone, landline. And they have features like call forwarding, hot desking. What else do they have? They can have like dedicated phone numbers, so they can have different caller ID, their own hold music, that sort of thing. Below that, I have agents here. Agents are specific to ACD queues. ACD queues on Dash are $30 per ACD queue. And then I forget what the agent cost is, but basically agents are there to receive calls through the ACD queues. The only devices they can have are VoIP devices, so a VoIP phone, a soft phone, or a web phone. They can make outbound calls, but generally speaking, their primary focus is to be receiving calls through the ACD queues. And they can be in multiple ACD queues. They're not just one agent can only be in one queue. Below that, you have your total devices, basically just showing a breakdown of the kinds of devices you have on the account. Over here to the right, we have your main numbers, or main numbers in this case. So all these numbers behave the same way. They have the same main greeting. They have the same initial call routing that comes into the system. Below this is your fax box number. So this is for your incoming faxes. This is the number that you would give out for people who need to fax to you. And then your phone number breakdowns, basically your total numbers. So assigned numbers, these are numbers you're actively using, whether it's a main number, they're going directly to a user or to a group or a queue or what have you. Spare numbers means these are numbers on your account, so you're still being charged for them, but you're not actively using them. They're not ringing to anything. Usually it's because you're saving them for a particular promotion, or maybe you got a block of numbers and you just haven't got to those later numbers. And then the breakdown between, in this case, US local numbers, DID, or US toll-free phone numbers. Your company directory, you can always download this. This is basically just internal usage. The account ID, you technically could send this to us to identify you in terms of what account you're dealing with. Generally speaking, when you're calling in to support or to our billing team, for example, we're generally going to ask you for the company name, because that's a lot easier to rattle off than that kind of long alphanumeric string. And then lastly down here, this is the account realm. You use this for programming a third-party VoIP device. So a VoIP phone that we don't auto-provision, for example, or a soft phone. You also use it for faxing out. Up the top here is your caller ID. The system wants this set up, so we do recommend you do so. You select one of your main numbers. The company caller ID name, sometimes referred to as CNAME or CNOM, basically allows you to add text to your caller ID information. Now, you're limited up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. And this information is sent out when you make an outbound call through the system. A couple things to keep in mind about this. One, we don't control all the servers involved in this. This is actually among many different carriers. They have their different servers that support this. So when you submit this, and after you click Save Changes, this gets transmitted to those servers. It takes about 3 to 5 business days for all of those servers to update. Unfortunately, not every carrier in North America supports CNAME. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of who does and who doesn't. And what that can do is, if for some reason a call routes through one of those carriers that doesn't support CNAME, then the CNAME information isn't passed down further down the line. Even for carriers who do support CNAME, if they're having an outage of their own, again, CNAME information probably not getting through. That assumes the call is getting through in the first place. Or even if they're having a maintenance time window, that could also impact it. And the last thing, although relatively minor, is if you're making a call out and someone has your phone number programmed into their phone, and so the receiving person has you programmed in, if they have you programmed in, whatever they've labeled you is going to take precedence over anything we send, right? So the local device takes precedence over information we send. Again, that usually only comes up on a cell phone. Down below here, we have the E911 address, or enhanced to 911. Again, for VoIP phones, if you pick up and then dial 911, this is the address information we send to emergency services. You can change this on a device level. So if you have people in different locations, you can have it changed so it's appropriate for them. And then you click Save Changes to save any changes you make. Hold music, this is your account default hold music. This is literally for people when put on hold. You can upload a file from your computer. It needs to be either a .mp3 or a .wav. Right now, we're limited to 1 megabyte for uploads. We can sometimes get a little bit more, but 1 megabyte seems to be the most consistent. Our engineers are working on getting that increased. I don't have an ETA when that's getting changed. Also, if you've already uploaded any files, they'll all be available here as well. Downside is we don't currently have a media manager for our customers. So if you have a bunch of files uploaded and we're not using these anymore, you can send an email to support@virtualpbx.com, and you can either tell us which ones to get rid of or which ones you just want to keep, and then we can go through and do that for you. Let's go over to main number. As you've noticed, it does take Dash a little bit to load. That's just normal. Okay, so main number. These are all your main numbers. Now, generally speaking, if you try to unassign a number, it's going to ask you about what do you want to do about E911 and caller ID. Now, once you have main numbers assigned, the system wants at least one number to have E911 set up. If you don't, it's basically going to say set one up on one of your other numbers, and then you can remove the existing one. You have a little gear icon over here where you can set the caller ID information. And the E911. And then lastly is prepend. So prepend is specific to VoIP phones. Basically, when a call comes in through the system and we send it to a VoIP phone, what prepend here allows you to do is add additional text in front of the caller ID, basically to give your staff members a heads up about what this call is coming in on. So like if you have a special promotion going on, you could put it here saying, it's like sale. So that way your staff members would know, oh, it's about the sale. That sort of thing. Again, this only works on a VoIP phone. You can add more main numbers. So if you have spare numbers on your account, that's what this is for here, saying, hey, pick one of your spare numbers. Or especially if you're a new sign up, you may not have added any main numbers to begin with, and now you're like, oh, I need a main number. You would click on buy numbers, and you have an option of local or toll free. So local is a US area code. So we can enter something like 702, which is Las Vegas. Do a search, and then you see the numbers that are available. If you scroll down, it'll keep adding more until it runs out. And then you just click on add, and it moves them over. And then you click on buy numbers, and it adds them to your account. Now, in the case of a new sign up, you don't have any phone numbers. You're not going to be charged for those initial phone numbers, right? Each plan comes with, I think the Dash Basic comes with one number. The other plans come with 2 or 3. So that first number you're not going to be charged for, but then once you have beyond your allocation, you'll be charged. It's $4.99 per month per number. However, for international numbers, you're going to need to send an email to porting@virtualpbx.com. They'll let you know the availability. Usually they need the city and country that you want a number in. Some countries require additional documentation. So like proof of residence or proof of presence, like a utility bill. But porting will let you know when that applies. And international numbers, I believe, are $19.99 a month. Once you have main numbers on the account, then you have the ability to adjust your office hours strategy. By default, you are on 24-hour open office. That's to basically make sure you're open when you sign up. Most people change it over to custom. Each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of the box, and then you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Each day you don't check, you're closed. And one little option down here that people miss is if your office is closed for lunch. So everyone just, you shut down at noon, everyone goes off to lunch. You put a check mark here, and then you can enter in your lunch hours. So the system will automatically put you in this mode once it realizes it's lunchtime. Office holidays, you can set up your office holidays in advance. One thing to keep in mind is the year is not an option, right? It's just giving you month and day. So for things like 4th of July, that's pretty easy. You just set it up and it's always there. Things like Memorial Day, which the date will change from year to year, you're going to either want to delete it after it's passed or remember to adjust it after the fact. So a couple days after, just to make sure you're not giving yourself an extra day of being closed. Adding single day, pretty self-explanatory. Is in line, you name it, and then you choose month and day. You can do a date range. Actually, I have one right above it here. So again, I named it and put the date range that it covers. One thing to keep in mind, since it's coming up, for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, since many people are closed for both of those days, and we don't have a year option to put in, you want to do each of those days individually. So do a single day for New Year's Eve, single day for New Year's Day. If you're closed beyond that, then you can do a date range. And again, save changes when you're done. Also, once you have a main number on the account, you can look at or adjust your incoming call handling. So you have 3 basic options. Call comes in, goes to virtual receptionist. This is the standard, call comes in, they hear a greeting when the system connects, and then they enter a menu option or enter an extension number. This next option here is call comes in, rings to somebody or a group of people. People aren't able to pick up, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist, they can enter a menu option. And then the last option, call comes in, rings to a person or people, they're not able to pick up, you send the call to voicemail. If you click here on the virtual receptionist, it's going to open up a little box. So on the left is your main menu. So this is what you tell the system what the phone menu or the buttons on the phone correspond to. So 1, I'm sending it to this little icon lets me know it's a ring group. So to a group of people about Borderlands 3. All right, 2, going to a different group about school. 3, I'm sending it directly to one person, Ray. 4, goes to the directory. And then 5, I am sending it to Miguel's voicemail box. You click add route, and you pick the route, and then you say, oh, where do I want it to go? You do something like that, and then you click save changes. Now, for incoming call handling, when you make a change, so I already clicked save changes once, I need to save changes here as well. And that way, all the changes actually got saved. Over here on the right, this is where you handle the main greeting. So this is where you give the instructions to your inbound caller on what to press to get to places. Right? It's also where you say thank you for calling, and you can include anything like special promotions, directions, etc. So like a 1 megabyte MP3, for example, is roughly a 5-minute recording. Text to speech, you type it, you hit save or you hit update, and it's ready to go. right? Upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, just find it on your computer. Choose from existing recordings and anything you've already uploaded. So say for holidays, right, you're gonna probably have a new recording. After the holiday season ends, you can just flip back to your normal recording afterwards. Recorded over the phone. So if you ever see the term a registered phone or a phone registered in this account, that means the system is referring to a VoIP phone that is on this account. Not a cell phone, not a landline, but a VoIP phone. So basically this is saying, pick up the VoIP phone, dial your main number, enter the PIN, and then you can record over the phone. Now, if you already have a greeting in place, so in this instance, I have a text-to-speech greeting in place. When I call in, that text-to-speech greeting is going to play. As soon as that starts playing, I can enter the PIN number. Right? If I don't have a greeting in place yet at all, right? New account, just getting started, then you pick up the phone, dial a number, enter the PIN, and then it'll start guiding you through, the system will start guiding you through recording over the phone. Next, we got professional recording services. So we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings, mostly because they have something like 100 voice actors to choose from. They have different versions of English available. So basically, you click on order, and it takes you to their site. Basic process here. Here's a voice talent. Again, there are different versions of English. They have Spanish, French, bilingual options. And then they have their own pricing structure. And they have packages as well. So you can just do a standard message on hold or main greeting, right? That would be this sort of thing over here. You can also do messages on hold, so a mix of music and a message. Again, if you make any changes, you would click save here. Sorry, for Snap Recordings, so they handle their own billing. They obviously handle the delivery to you. They also have options for like rush delivery, for example. But basically, they will send you the file, you would imagine via email, and then you would just simply upload it. Notice here you have different tabs. So for after hours, you can have a different route, right? So here I have it during my open hours. I want them to go to virtual receptionist. After hours, I'm having it go to Kathy here. If she isn't able to pick up after hours, then it goes right to the virtual receptionist. Right, holidays, I can have it, anything. One thing to keep in mind though is that each one of these is set up differently. So I can have different routes for different times of day or what have you. But like for holidays, I would probably do something like this, or go to a particular user and then go to voicemail. This option also has just skip to voicemail, basically saying, hey, we're closed. So I'm just gonna have everything go to voicemail, at least during the holiday schedule. Main fax box number, again, this is for your incoming faxes. You can edit your fax box to add email addresses for people so that someone gets that fax. And that's gonna be in a PDF format. Next up, we have numbers. This shows your numbers on the account and where they're going. These two red ones were port examples. And then spare numbers are the numbers in use. You can begin the port process right here. You can just start a new port request. And in fact, what we'll do we basically have all the guide and screenshots on the website. Basically, you would enter 1 plus area code and phone number, click add, and basically just follow the on-screen steps. The main thing about porting is you have to have active accounts on both sides of the port, right? So who you're porting from, usually referred to as a losing carrier, and who you're porting to, or the winning carrier. Both you have to have an active accounts on both sides. The winning carrier is responsible for communicating to you, right? So basically, you submit the letter of agency and a copy of the bill. They submit that to the other carrier. They communicate with each other, basically saying, yes, everything's good. Here's when we're going to release the number to you. The winning carrier will say, hey, here's when we're expecting the port to be completed. Likewise, if there's a problem, like, the address didn't match up, or the authorized name didn't match, or the company name was wrong, or what have you, whatever error that the losing carrier said is wrong with a request, they communicate with that the port has been rejected, but they also have to give a reason. Again, the company that you're porting to will communicate that to you, saying, hey, the other carrier is saying this is wrong. So that might be because there was a typo of some type on the LOA, or there was a change of information that didn't get communicated to your current carrier, etc. The end result is, if there's a rejection, you almost always have to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information is. Then you just basically update, in this case, us, VirtualPBX, and then we update the port request, and then hopefully it goes through. Just for timing, toll-free numbers usually take days, like 3 to 5 business days, give or take. Local numbers can take anywhere from a day up to 6 weeks. Although 6 weeks is pretty extreme. Usually you're in a couple-week range. Oh, and for toll-free, because I didn't actually show this earlier, you just pick one of the toll-free prefixes, excuse me. Hit search, and then again, it's just click the ones you like and add on to the account. Users. So on Dash, you are billed on a per user basis. Click on add user up the top here. You enter their first name and last name, and then their email address. So every user has to have their own email address. You enter a password. The system's going to default to the next available extension, since I've started off in the 1000 series. Right? If on your first extension you started off with 3000, then the next one will be 3001. Including company directory, up to you. You can always change that later. Send emails to an alternate address basically means you have to add another address here. The one that I do say you should check is this one: send credentials to this user. Basically, once you click create user, the system will automatically send an email to this address saying, hey, here's your login information. You can now log into the system. All right, once they're created, you can go here. You can always adjust their name. Here's where you would change the credentials, or if they've had trouble remembering. Or if you're just like, oh, this person left the company, let's just reuse everything. You can change the information. You can change the PIN here for the voicemail box. Here's where you would change if they're in the company directory. So by default, any user you add is just a standard user. You can change them to an admin. The big caveat is for a new account, right? That first user is automatically an admin. So be careful when you're going in here. Is don't accidentally put yourself as a user, click save changes, and then exit the system. When you log back in, you're not going to be an admin anymore. And then you basically have to send an email to support saying, hey, I did this, please make me an admin. Not a big deal, but it can cause a delay. All right, over here, this is the time zone. Default, this is the language. Those are ones available. The ringing timeout is how much time we try to send a call to the devices associated with this user. The default is 20 seconds. If you have users primarily using cell phones as their primary devices, you're going to probably want to up that a little bit, usually to 30 to 35 seconds. And then the main extension associated with that user. Next up, we have the extensions box. You can add additional extensions to a user. Most people only need one extension, but like for instance, a manager for, I know like internally, VirtualPBX, our VP of sales, he has multiple extensions because he's had some turnover within the sales team. So in order to not miss inbound calls and voicemails, he has the former staff members' voice extensions go to him until he reassigns them to new people. Under phone numbers, this is where you can have a phone number go directly to a specific user. So for like a salesperson, for example, they can have their own number. They can put that on their business cards. That way, calls come in, goes only to them. Your inbound caller doesn't have to put menu options or anything. Devices, this is where you add devices, basically what this user is using to answer calls. Oops. Sorry about that. Typically, you can add from spare devices means you've already added devices. New device means it's not on the system. So a SIP phone, it's a VoIP phone. If you have one of these manufacturers, you can click on them to see the specific models. And so these are phones that are auto-provisionable. Basically, click on the phone, put a name, and you get the MAC address of the phone. This is usually on a sticker on the back of the phone. And then you'll click on Create Device. Then on that phone's has a web UI. We have instructions on our website. But basically, you set up the web UI, the phone will reboot, speak to us, it'll get the configuration information, and then be set up. And then you can basically use almost every feature of the phone with VirtualPBX. And that's the advantage of using a VoIP phone. Cell phone, put a name, put +1 area code and phone number. And then you have a couple other options. By default, when the system routes a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, the phone will ring and you pick up, you'll hear an automated message come on saying, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1 to accept the call. If you don't press 1, you're not accepting the call will go to the system voicemail. Now, if you don't want to bother pressing 1 or you're okay with calls going to your cell phone's voicemail, we click this checkbox here. So basically, once we hear that pickup tone, calls connected can go into the cell phone voicemail. Keep original caller ID means that inbound caller's phone number would show up on your cell phone. If you uncheck it, then you'll get the main number showing up on your cell phone. And then hide from contact list is basically just hiding your cell phone number from the user directory on the system. Soft phone is essentially, you have a couple options. So by default, we're putting you as a third-party application, meaning you're using a piece of software or a VoIP phone that we don't support. So for instance, when you went to add SIP phone and you didn't see your manufacturer there, or you did, but your specific phone model wasn't there, you would use a soft phone. Again, you would name it up here. Then you have the username. This is the password. And then this is the server information. So you would use this information to program the soft phone that you're going to use or the VoIP phone you're going to use. Now, the other thing you can do is if you click here, now you're saying, I'm going to use a VirtualPBX soft phone application. So you put a device name, and basically once you hit create device, the systems will send you an email saying, here's a username and password to log into the VirtualPBX soft phone app. And then you can download it from the Google Play Store or App Store. We do have desktop versions of our soft phone app for Windows and Mac. However, that requires a $40 licensing fee. So you would have to contact our billing team to get that processed. Web phone, pretty simple process. It's put a name, click create device, and from that login page, all right, you click on the web phone link, and it's going to same username, password, and account name as your Dash login. 9 line is the exact same as cell phone. Fax is for like a digital fax. I don't know of any customer making use of it. And then ATA is for an ATA adapter, basically trying to use an old analog phone and connect it to a network. For actual phones, it works okay. For faxing, so if you have an analog fax machine, it can be problematic. When you create a user, they automatically have voicemail activated on their system. But then you have some other features. So caller ID number, this only works is if they have a phone number. So let's go up here to Take. So he has a phone number. I can turn this on, and then I can select his phone number. So what that means is, okay. Kind of weird that it gave me one error for a different feature. But basically now, whenever Hatake makes an outbound call, his caller ID is going to be this 918 number instead of the main number on the account. Call forwarding. So call forwarding is for basically when you're using a cell phone as a backup, right? The idea being that your primary phone is a VoIP phone, and for whatever reasons, occasionally you're going to want calls on your cell phone, right? If you're going to use your cell phone as a primary device, right, that's what you're getting your calls on all the time, you would just add that simply as a device on the user. And the advantage of call forwarding is you can do failover mode. Basically, the VoIP phone loses connection for whatever reason. The system will detect that and then say, okay, failover mode, I'm going to send you to the forwarding rule that you already have in place. Hot desking, this is if you're in a shared office environment where your staff members might be at a different desk and or different phone from day to day. So basically they can get in, they can log into the phone, and then they're going to get their calls at that phone. At the end of their shift, they log out of the phone and go from there. Voicemail is just on or off. By default, it's on. Fax box, a user can have their own fax box number. Basically, if you're having it go to a specific phone number, that can potentially add a different charge. You can also set it up as an extension, although that means you're expecting your inbound fax person to call on your main number, enter an extension number, and then hit fax start. A lot of people, for whatever reasons, basically they're just, or actually for a simple reason of habit, they're just used to go to a fax machine, enter the fax, enter the phone number, and then walk away. Follow me is when you have multiple devices and you can determine A, which devices are active, and then how you want them to ring. So in this case, it's ringing to a VoIP phone first, and then towards the end of that ring, it starts ringing a cell phone. Right? You can do something like that instead. So I distributed it, and if I want to change the order, it'll just flip it for me there. And then you can adjust the sliders as necessary, assuming you click the right spot. Music on hold. So this is specific to when this user puts a caller on hold. That's the music file that will play. Again, .wav.mp3. Call recording. If you choose to call record or record calls, you enable it. Please bear in mind you're responsible for any warnings. And then how do you want to handle it? So inbound internal means a call coming into this user from another user on the account. Right? Inbound external, call coming from outside the system to this particular user. Likewise, outbound internal means call from this user to another user. Outbound external from this user to someone outside the system. Then you turn on the ones you want. And then you can do account default or just set it to off. All right, and that is users. Next, we have groups, or ring groups, or hunt groups, depending on your background. This essentially allows you to make a department. And you can add a bunch of people that basically answer calls related to the same thing. You click on Add Group, and you make a name for it. And you give it an extension number. That's the extension number is predominantly for your staff members to transfer calls to it. And then after that, you just start adding people by clicking and dragging. And then you create the group. Right. After you create it, you can click on the name here. You can always change the name. And then dialing repeats. Basically, this allows you to control how many times that inbound caller can try to contact someone in the group. All right, default is 1. You got little arrows here to the right, and you can up that. I don't know if there's a top end limit. I figure most people only want 2 or 3. You click on the members box. So up here is the total ring duration for the group. I don't know why the system defaults everyone to 20 seconds. You can distribute it. So in this case, it rings Hatake first, then Jenica, then Kat, et cetera, et cetera. You can adjust the sliders. You can click and drag people around. But again, you can always adjust how you want it to work, just basically up to your preference. Oops. And then you click Save Changes. You can add additional extension numbers if you want, or change the extension. Phone number. You can add a phone number so it goes directly into this ring group. And then group features. Call recording on our group is either on or off. Basically, every call that comes into the group is going to be recorded if you enable it. Ringback is essentially the hold music for the ring group. So basically, call comes in, you can choose to enable this and then upload a file. Save. And so that's the file that will play while the inbound caller is waiting for one of your staff members to pick up. A key little caveat here is for that ringback file, you want to make sure it is at least as long as that ring duration, so 120 seconds as a default, of the ring group. Right? If you make it too short, so let's say you only have an 80-second file, after 80 seconds, the system will consider that first ring through. So then it'll start all over again. And if you only have it for one ring through, then it basically ends the call, or it'll go to the next action rule. Typically you want this enabled, but basically if no one answers, what do you want the system to do? Basically, it's usually main menu or send them to a voicemail box. Allow call forward allows your extension or your users to make use of call forwarding. If you don't have this allowed, then they're not going to be able to use their call forwarding. Now, again, if your users are using cell phones, this is not going to impact them because their cell phone should then be a device, not a forward. And then caller ID prepend. Again, for your VoIP phone users, you can add a numeric or name or text prefix. So again, your staff members know what the call is about. Devices, this is the device list of what you have on the system. Generally speaking, for soft phone or SIP phones, you would want them to show up as green. That lets you know they're connected to us. And you can always enable or disable phones. You can also click on a wrench icon and delete the device. You don't want it. In the wrench icon, you can always double check. Oh, that's how I do it. Let's go to the SIP phone here. All right, so you can get the MAC address. You can check the SIP information, etc. You can always add devices here. This is normally for like you have hardware, like you ordered a bunch of hardware, but you haven't hired all the staff members for it yet. You might as well get the hardware in. And then once you have the users added, you can then assign the phones to them. Voicemail boxes, again, your main voicemail box and any user that's created will show up automatically. So these voicemail boxes that have a user name, these were the voicemail boxes created when the user was created. These are basically special voicemail boxes. They're intrinsically tied to that user. So if you accidentally delete Charles's voicemail box, but Charles is still a user, he's not going to have access to his voicemail. If you try to recreate a voicemail box and name it Charles, it's still not going to have his name here, which means he's not going to be able to have direct access to it. It's going to take him it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to get to his voicemail. So in that situation, the only way to have that intrinsic tie again is basically delete the user and recreate it. So in general, don't delete a voicemail box that's associated with a user unless you're absolutely certain. And at that point, you can consider deleting the user anyway. But the other reason to be here is to add a voicemail box is for your groups, right? So we made that Starbucks group. And now it's here. Now, once you create a voicemail box, you want to get some kind of greeting media in play. Either upload a new one or just so once you have a media file in play, go back to advanced options, then you can click already set up. For voicemail boxes, we also recommend delete after notification. Of course, for that, you also want to make sure you have a recipient set up. So set up the recipient, but then also delete after notification. The system allows 100 voicemail messages on the system. So you want them sent off and then deleted. That way you don't have to worry about voicemail boxes being full and not able to take messages. Agents, if you're making use of queues, adding agents is the same as adding a user. You've got their name here. You can change their credentials. You also can convert them to a user. They have their own extension numbers. Don't know if, let me try adding a phone number. I had an error. Yeah. Right now, system doesn't allow you add a phone number directly to an agent. And then devices. Agents can only have a VoIP device. And in fact, if you click on your device, it'll show you that you're restricted. Feature codes. These are codes you can use on your VoIP phone to make use of special features. So like logging into an ACD queue, a hot desking. You can update and enable your call forwarding, etc. And these are all on the website, so you don't have to dig into your system every time. Call logs, this shows the call activity on your account. And you can click over here. Oops, wrong thing. But basically you get some more details, and then the gear icon gives you a lot more. I personally don't know what a lot of this means, but it can give you an idea of what's going on. In worst case, you can send it to our support team, and they can also help you determine what happened. Additionally, as an admin, you have some other features over here under the hamburger menu. So we're on the dashboard right now. Queues, this is where you add and remove ACD queues, as well as adjust their settings. Right. Now, you can select a spare number, buy a new number, or just assign it a new extension. Then you go to queue configuration. Queue routing strategy, round robin, essentially random, eventually balances out. Least calls means least amount of connected calls. So whoever has the least amount of connected calls gets the next call that comes in. Least offers means who's had the minute or lower amount of calls offered to them. Doesn't matter if they're connected or not. It's just like, Bob had 100 calls offered to him. Mary only has had 10. Mary's getting the next call. Right? And then most idle, who's been waiting for the call the longest. You have different hold music options, and you can upload a new one. Queue timeout is measured in seconds. Basically, how long can the inbound caller wait on hold? Queue limit, basically, you can limit the number of people who are waiting on hold. Timeout, if empty, basically you have no staff members in, just have the escalation rules take effect. Escalation queue, this assumes that you have another ACD queue, and then you can have it go to that queue. Basically, this initial queue no one is able to pick up, send it to this other queue. It's overflow. If you set it on none, it doesn't do that. And then this rule will then come up. Basically, after timeout, what happens? You probably get sent into a voicemail box. For your agents, recovery time, basically after a call, How much time are you giving them to recover, get a sip of water or whatever. Force away on rejected or missed. So if an agent misses a call, this you can have, if you enable this, the system will put them in away mode, meaning they're not going to be offered any more calls until they themselves mark themselves as ready. And then agent connect timeout, basically how much time you try to reach an agent. And then you click on create queue, and it's been created. And then you see all your queues. Now, on an active system, you could click on here, you would see your agents. In fact, we can add agents. And then if they are logged in, you would see 2 of 2, and you would see their status. Blacklists. This is so you can create a list of numbers to block from accessing your system, right? So you have someone who calls in and harasses your staff or likes playing pranks on the phone because they're bored. You would click on edit blacklists. You can either add to create a new one or just choose an existing one. And then you add +1 area code and phone number. And you would hit save. You go back to settings. And by default, all new lists are under available. If you want to make it active, you put it under selected, and then you click update. And so now that rule is in effect. And these two rules that are here, they're not in use right now. I can always move them over anytime. Faxes, this allows you to get to any fax box on the system. And then you can see the inbound. You can move over to check their outbound. And then the email to fax logs. If there's ever an error for the faxes, check the email to fax logs. And then over here under details, there should be like a little eye, and you can click on it, and it'll give you some information. Usually it's like incorrect file type, or there's too many PDFs. When you fax out, you're allowed 1 PDF. The monitor. This lets you know what's going on with your users in terms of their current status. So green tells you they're waiting for a call. If they're red, they're marked themselves away. If they're blue, they're on an inbound call. If they're yellow/gold, they're on an outbound call. And then you can swap it by available or who's busy. Recordings takes you to the recordings site. I cannot get to that myself right now. The user portal, this is what your standard users see when they log in, so they can get to their voicemails. They can listen to them, they can download them. They check mark it here. They mark as deleted, then after they refresh, it'll be removed. They can look at their call history. They can look at their faxing history. The contact list is the user directory. Conference is where you can control your conferences. Right, so you can invite other staff members to the conference. Once everyone's in, you can lock it so other people can't randomly just enter. You can mute everybody, you can unmute, and you can end the conference. When you have participants here, you can also mute particular people or kick a particular person, that sort of thing. And then under settings and devices, this is where users can also set up their own call forward if they don't want to use the phone to do it. And voicemails, this is exactly like the fax mail box. Basically, as an admin, you can get to any voicemail box, see what the messages are, and clear them out if you need to. The last thing down here is webhooks, which is a fairly specialized feature, but basically allows you to connect other software to Dash. That's something you have to pay for, so you have to talk to our billing or sales teams to get the pricing on. But basically, I know we have examples on our website for like with Zapier, I believe, to basically hook into Dash. And that is all of Dash. Just make my page loads. I do thank you for joining me today. You can always sign up for another session. We'll be adding more sessions for the new year shortly. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, we have full guide write-ups under support so that you can see what you want to do, get a better idea. You can always contact our support team at 888-825-0800. They are option 2. Also on our website, you have this little icon down here. That's a chat window, so you can chat with our support team. And you can always email support@virtualpbx.com. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream. Thank you very much.